You now tuned in to the Gumptown Podcast. I'm your boy Doug B. We ain't got nothing to talk about, but we got something to talk about. Let's go. Good people. Welcome back to the Gumptown Podcast, episode 90. I'm your boy Doug B. If you tuned in to this podcast, thank you for your time and your attention. I really appreciate you giving this podcast a shot. Today's guest is the founder and owner of Miss T's Book Room. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I'm sure we'll all be inspired by her story. Let's chop it up with Kioka Tuck. Kioka, how's it going?
It's good. It's going really great.
Glad to hear that. First things first, thank you for taking time out of your schedule to chop it up with me a few minutes. I really appreciate it.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
Yes, ma'am. Of course, we're here to talk about Miss T's Book Room. But before we go there, let's get to know the woman behind the brand. What's your story?
Okay. So my name is Kioka Tuck, and I was born actually in Montgomery. I was raised in Rockford, Alabama, which is about a good hour maybe from Montgomery. I attended Central Coosa. We do it interchangeably sometimes. But I went to Rockford Elementary, and then I attended the high school there, and I graduated in 2005. In high school, I was kind of the quiet one. I say an introvert, but I was like in the yearbook and on the yearbook committee, and I actually had a newspaper that we would do at my church. So I was involved in the church. I'm actually still involved in my church at this moment. Basically, like I said, I was an introvert, loved to read. My father he instilled that. So Miss T's Book Room is just really basically after him, because he's the one who thought of the name. He's the one who named me Kioka. So my dad is a big part of Miss T's Book Room. And I actually started my college career at Tuskegee University. And then I transferred to AUM. At Tuskegee, I was a occupational therapy major. And when I went to AUM, I was I changed it to early childhood special education. So after AUM, I actually came back home and I started working in Head Start. And then I moved on to pre-K. And now currently I am a special education teacher. And Miss T's Book Room really started when I became, a teacher. Basically, I would see when I went to a lot of schools and different places that we didn't have a lot of books, or in the school, a lot of books with diverse characters, children in the books that looked like me. And I wanted to really change that. I was so I embrace not only diverse books, but I also encourage the love of reading and learning how to read and the information that you get from reading. And so, like I said, it started basically when I became a teacher. And I also noticed that a lot of times history books weren't really just telling us, we know a lot about Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King Jr., but they weren't really trying to talk about African-American history with a lot of different African-Americans, ones that you probably never heard of. So I would find books on people some of my students probably never heard of. And I started to do that. And that's kind of how Miss T's Book Room started.
Okay, great story. I appreciate you sharing your background and talking a little bit about Mrs. T's Book Room. So let's back up a little bit. So you're born in the Gump, ended up going to Rockford. If I'm not mistaken, isn't that near Talladega?
Yeah, it is. It's there.
Wow.
It's near.
Wow. And the reason I know about that, I've been to Jacksonville State. Back in my college days, I went to Jacksonville State a couple times to party. And so I remember that little town. Yeah, it was it's very interesting feelings driving through there. I won't talk about your town. I'll just say
look, I get it. I get it. Small town girl. I know Rockford. Where is it? I have to say either Elliott City or I have to say Sylacauga. I have to say something so I can say that, it's close to that. And it's great that you said JSU, because I actually am currently at JSU as a grad student. So
okay.
So yeah. I have to say, where you from? Rockford, Coosa County. I say Lake Martin, Elliott City. I have to kind of look. I've been there for a long time.
Right. Yeah, because Rockford is one of the places you won't find it unless you you won't just run into Rock, but you got to literally be headed to
Yeah.
Jacksonville or Chicago. Like you just
Yeah,
not
you
gonna
got
pop
to
up
be
there.
headed. And then when people say, "Oh, y'all been to Rockford," I have to ask them, "Were you working there, or did you drive through?" Because people just don't like,
Right.
just don't like come to Rockford.
Right,
So
for sure, for sure. Right. So let's talk about your college days. So you started out at Tuskegee. We'll
yeah.
start there first. What was the HBCU experience like while you were there?
Oh, I loved it. I still rep Tuskegee. Look, I might I probably did graduate from there, but I still rep Tuskegee. Actually, I wanted to always like not at first wanted to do an HBCU, and my father kind of instilled in me like the HBCUs, and then I started like taking, college tours, and I was like, this is me, I like this. This is different. And so my father graduated from Alabama A&M. So, and his brother. So I was like, hey, I want to do it, but I picked Tuskegee because I like the, historical. Come on, it's Tuskegee. So it's, you can be in California, New York, and you say, hey, I went to Tuskegee. Oh,
Hmm.
So that was my, that was really, it was a great experience. I've still really close with some people I went to Tuskegee with. So yeah, it was a wonderful experience.
Yes, ma'am. That's a HBCU experience. Just going
Yeah,
in there, you like everybody become family. People from all over, from the
right,
South,
right.
West
Yeah,
Coast, Midwest, and it sounds like you got a chance to enjoy just that family aspect. So
yeah, yeah.
moving to AUM, was there any culture shock moving from Tuskegee to AUM? If so, tell me about it.
Not really. I feel like I like the fact that I had the historical HBCU experience, and then I
Hmm.
had the PWI experience. I didn't see too much of a difference. I mean, to me, no offense, but to me, Tuskegee was a little bit harder. I Tuskegee's a little bit harder, but AUM, I still, I was able to, because Tuskegee, Montgomery, not too far from each other, and I was also able to make friends and keep my, like still be in touch with the, people that was in Tuskegee. So I didn't have a big culture shock.
Hmm.
But like you say, HBCU is a experience. So you have your Greek organizations that are a little bit more, they're always doing something. We always doing something for the culture, and so
Hmm.
they did some things, but I did miss that, like I said, for the culture.
Yes, ma'am. Absolutely. So pretty much when you got the AUM, you were able to pivot. You didn't have any issues. So by you being on that college campus, and like you just said, it's not a lot going on. It was less
Yeah,
distractions, I'm pretty sure, than it was at
right,
Tuskegee.
right. Because yes, Tuskegee.
Oh, for
That was
sure.
a distraction, but I had a great time. Look, I had a great time.
Hey, that's what it's all about, and we'll leave it there.
Right. And I was learning. I learned. Look, I learned. So
Yes, ma'am.
I did learn.
That's what it's all about. Like that's what college is
Right.
really all about. Go get your education, but have some fun at the same time. Don't just be
Exactly.
in the library all the time, you know?
Exactly. Right, right.
Yes, ma'am. So let's talk about Miss T's book room. What
Okay.
exactly is Miss T's book room?
Like I said before, it was, it started off as something I was just trying to get out there for my students, or like just kids of color. Because when I started teaching, I didn't see a lot of books in the classroom that had diverse characters, that had, children of different races and cultures, and they celebrating different traditions. I didn't see that, and I felt like, what if we put more of that into the classroom, or just anywhere, and just kind of like incorporate that so kids can learn. To me, and I feel this is my opinion, that books help us learn, help us learn about just everything. And so it started with, the students, and I was promoting the reading. And then when I started to become, a teacher in the school, like the school system, I started in Head Start, and I did, the school system. I noticed that it wasn't really that some of the kids hated reading or didn't like reading, but it was hard for them to learn how to read. And I was like, well, maybe that can be a factor too. So if you're, not able to read, you might just not, you don't want a book. You don't want to see a book. You don't want to do that. So I started incorporating, more of, let me show parents how they can start. how they can help their children learn how to read, or what are the steps that you need to take when your child is having some issues in the classroom with reading. So it started out like that, and then my father got sick and he passed away 2 years ago. So we kind of I was trying to just kind of find some things that I had to really get back into my reading. And so I actually, behind me, if you can see, I started with the Cicely Tyson book. I got back into reading adult books, and I said, you know what, let me, Miss T's book room, adults like to read too. I kind of noticed that during the pandemic. So I was like, you know what, adults like to read too. And I started looking for books, memoirs. I love nonfiction. I'm a big nonfiction person. And I started showing and diving into historical, some historical fiction. Like I said, nonfiction, learning about my ancestors, learning about things that, even adults might not know. And then I learned, and I kind of figured out, adults, we don't ever stop learning. I mean, we don't ever stop learning. So that was the thing about Miss T's book room. So I started incorporating adult books back into my life. My first book that I ever read that really got me got me on memoirs and nonfiction was Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings. So that's why I love memoirs. So basically, that's how I started back getting adult books into, Miss T's book room.
Nice, and that's a great story. And sorry for your loss. And I know you spoken very highly of your father, how he was very inspirational in you wanting to read and falling in love with reading, and just great to hear that. Like, that's glad that you're continuing to carry the torch. I definitely commend you for that. Much respect.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So in terms of just you having that vision, seeing that these kids weren't enjoying reading, because let's call it what it is. Most of these books in these school systems, they're boring. They tell the same crap story over and over.
And over and over. And I'm telling you, like, I hate to say it as a teacher, but it's like some of the stories they have to read. I'm like,
right.
I don't want to read this.
Exactly. And you being the teacher.
I don't want to read this. I don't want to read
this. Right. And you being the teacher in that infrastructure, you have to somewhat conform to that, because hey, let's call it what it is. When we're working for other people, we do have to conform to some of their standards. So you being a teacher, some of those things you do have based on the curriculum, you have to stick to the curriculum for the most part. But you being able to see that and put your own spin on it with Mrs. T's book room, that's great, because I'll be transparent with you. I'm 35 years old, and I read so much Columbus and DeSoto. I'm like, oh my goodness. When I was in school, and they talking about so,
and like you read about Columbus, and like you said, DeSoto, and then you read about our presidents, our past presidents, great thing. The great things they did. Let me put them quotes. The great things they did, and some of my students are learning. And I was reading a book, and this woman was like, in the book, she was like, yeah, I learned it. Some of these presidents, I won't say presidents, but he was a great president. He was wonderful. And I'm like, and then you go down and you're like, yeah, but this was this. And I wish that we were, able to kind of teach that and show that, but like you said, Columbus and DeSoto, that's what we learned, that's what we know about. Yeah, we know about that.
Right. Right. And like even our history, Black history, they make it like the school books, the school system make it appear as if we started at slavery. No, we were first royalty. We were engineers, mathematicians.
Yeah. And like you said that, like we think children don't know. Well, there's a lot of adults that don't know that. Some of my friends will be like, hey, let me ask Kioka about this. Because like my father was like he was like a historian, and he did a lot of work in Montgomery on a lot of committees and stuff. And people would ask me, well, how do that? I like, he reads a lot, like, and he made, I used to be one of those, oh, that don't make sense, Daddy. That's not true. Then I got older and I started reading more, and I'm like, yeah, he was right on some of this stuff, because like you said, people think, oh, it's just slavery and that's it. That's it. We're not going any past that. That's just it. But, and like I said, you think children don't know it. Well, there's a lot of adults that don't know it.
Right, so, for sure. And it's just funny how even today in today's school system, they teaching some of the same, well, a lot of the same curriculum that they taught when I went to school in the 90s and the 2000s. And
Right. The kids know about Honest Abe and my kids still know
Mhm.
about Honest Abe. And I think this week I asked some of my students, I'm like, who's on a dollar bill? Who's on a $5 bill? And they were just like, they kind of, I was like, well, you know who's on your money? You're using your money. You gotta know who's on your money. So we talk about that. And they were like, oh, okay, Abraham Lincoln. So they know about, they know about that. They'll, like you said, George Washington, and we know about George Washington, but a lot of them don't know about George Washington Carver. It's
Is
like we not, so yeah.
that then you know what that part, like that's the part that's very alarming. But I'm glad that you're filling that void in terms of
Right.
just as much as you know about George Washington and what the history books don't tell you. Yeah, he's the first president. But I'll be honest with you, Kioka, my perception changes about everybody in history once I found out that they own slaves. It changes, like
Yeah. It
George
does.
Washington, Honest Abe, all these people that we revere. Like when
Like Honest A, 1, 2.
exactly,
Honest,
like if you have my people in captivity,
yeah.
I don't fool with you no more. That's kind of where I stand,
Right.
and I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and then some people they want to, they ask, me a question, and I'm like, you sure you want to,
Right.
you sure you want me to tell you? Because then it's going to change your perception. It will, but
Hmm.
I like the truth, even though it hurts like that really hurts, like you said, when once you learn that captivity or any type of thing they've done to just kind of, just destroy our people,
Right.
that makes you like, nah, I don't think I like this person too much.
Right,
So
for
yeah,
sure. And that's exactly what it is. But that's great that you're instilling you're like I said, you're feeling that need and you're getting those kids away from that same old boring narrative that we all learned throughout
right.
grade school. So you being an avid reader and I see your bookshelf, so this may be a silly question. However, I'm going to ask anyway. What's your most preferred method of reading? Are you a physical book, audio book, or are you a digital book person?
Okay, I like a physical book.
Okay.
I like a hard copy. Look, I like a
Mhm.
hard copy. Yes, I do. But now I'm busy. Like my mom says, you need to slow down.
Mhm.
So I'm getting more into audiobook.
Mhm.
So it's especially with the ones that that talk about a history, I have to kind of do that audiobook because it's a lot of information.
Mhm.
And the ones that are that are written from a person from a different country, I like to hear
Mhm.
because I can't speak, the language. I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. So I do get into the audiobooks. I'm almost there. Actually have a book club called the Book Chat for a couple of women, and I have one on there. She just does not want to do audiobook. She refuses. So I get it. Look, she wants her a hard copy, and I mean, yeah, and I'm like that, and I'll do a digital every now and then, especially like if somebody wants me to review their book really quick. So yeah, I'll do a digital copy.
Yes, ma'am. Good stuff. Yeah, no, that's I'm a physical copy person myself. Like I just love to highlight and take notes and things of that nature. But to your point, being on the go, and I understand why you're starting to transition into the audio books. I've tried
Right.
it. It just my mind gets to wandering when I'm listening to the audio book
Yeah.
because that doggone phone of ours, like you start listening to the audio book and a notification come in, you start reading it. Yeah, it just gets me all distracted. But
Even I try to listen to it even on the road, but like you said, people calling or get a notification, and you're like, okay, I'm trying to listen to this. But even like I've gotten a lot into like podcasts too.
Mhm.
So I'm like, I'm trying to, and that works sometimes. So yeah, like I said, the audiobook thing is growing on me.
Yes, ma'am. So do you have a book that you can recall it was so good you read the entire book in one sitting?
In one sitting. Ooh. Now wait a minute, you know I done read a meme. um,
And it's cool if you haven't. I haven't. I was just
if
curious.
let me see. Well, how about listen to? Almost, listen to. Let me say listen to, and I got the look. I liked it so much that I went and got the hard copy because at first I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna like this, but I actually got the hard copy like a couple weeks later. It was Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. Like
Okay.
I can sit there and listen to that. I will sometimes be like, oh, that was so like my favorite, and I'll sit there and listen to it again. Like it's a really good memoir. Really good. So yes,
Nice.
I won't say I was sat in one sitting, but I did maybe 2 days, two
Oh
because
no,
it
it's
was
fine.
yeah.
It's fine. It's fine. Okay. Yeah, I'm definitely taking note of that, Trevor. No, I'm gonna
Yeah.
check out that memoir. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's great. And that's the power of reading. Like I love to read myself, like especially like you said, reading people's memoirs and biographies and reading about history and really
Yeah.
just learning the truth. And when you learn the truth, it's gonna do one or two things. Well, it's gonna do one thing. Most people, it's gonna upset you, like, wow, like nobody ever told me this.
Right.
And also, in my case, I like to go tell somebody about it. I'm like, hey, you know what? I just read this. Like, can you believe such and such? Like, President, he went down for us like that. Like, he really was on our necks, you know?
Right, like he really went down for us, you know what I'm saying? Like I like
Right.
how you said that. He really went down for us, but yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So Miss T's book room, whenever I have entrepreneurs, creators on the platform like yourself, I like to talk about three things: the aha moment, action, and audacity. You've already talked about your aha moment. You saw what the schools were lacking, so you came in to fill that void. Let's talk about the action. How long got to discovering that our kids needed diverse books? How long did it take you to take action in terms of coming up with Mrs. T's book room and getting started with it?
I would say actually a couple months because
Mhm.
it started off as um a informative blog.
Mhm.
And so I started looking for books that, really incorporated the historical. And actually I can remember I started with it was a children's book, Martin Luther King, and it was big words. And
Mhm.
I started with that one. And I just posted it on, I don't know if I posted on social media. I actually posted it on my blog, but I think I posted on my blog first, and I started talking about it. And that's kind of where it started, and then I was like, well, then I started looking in my classroom to see, hey, what books do I have? And then I was able to go and get books, and I would bring them to the classroom and read them. So yeah.
Yes, ma'am. So a couple of months, you got right to it. You had the
Yeah.
idea. That's great. So in that last portion, audacity, not only did you have the idea, you took action on it, but in between those two events, I believe it takes audacity to have the courage to even step out there and get started. Who or what
Yeah.
gave you that courage, that audacity to go for it?
I feel like my students, I'm actually an author. I actually have a book, Dream Sweet Baby, and it's
Okay.
dedicated to my pre-K babies that I was teaching at the time. But it's the students. It's, I knew that I was able to get that knowledge, and I know sometimes they might not have that foundation that I had. And I wanted to give them something or see something, or even their parents say, hey, you know what? Miss T's Brooklyn posted that. Let me get that for my child. Not even just historical, something to help them, with mental health. Our students are going through a lot, the kids are
Mhm.
going through a lot. And for parents to be able to say, my child is going through grief, or my child is going through, bullying, or, they don't understand that they are different. And so even that, that's what gives me, to just keep going, and that really gave me like, yeah, I need to do this for the students, for our future generation.
Yes, ma'am. And hats off to you for being willing to do that for our future generation. Because, like you said, being willing to step in and fill that void and provide that diverse set of books. And I'm pretty sure they're enjoying the fact that you've actually stepped up and implemented that. That's good stuff.
Right.
So let's talk about Dream Sweet Baby. Let's talk about the creative process. How long did it take you to write that book from cover to cover?
See, it took me about a year, because it was like it was the nerve. I'm nervous. You put stuff out there, you let everybody's opinion come in. So I
Right.
was kind of like, I don't know about putting it. And it started off as a little poem and a little thing that I came up with. My pre-K, they would take naps and stuff. They take naps, and the music, that sleepy music, and I would listen to it, and I just made up a little poem. And one day I read it to them. They didn't even know, they didn't know what was going on, and they liked it. So I said, you know what, I need to make this a book. And so I found my illustrator actually on Instagram. She was her name is Chastity Hampton, and she was very whimsical. And I that's kind of how I wanted my, children's book to be. And we started out, I gave her ideas of each page. I told her how I wanted the little boy to look and what I wanted him to do. And basically he was just a little child getting ready for bedtime, and he was having a hard time, and he didn't count sheep, but he was just like talking about different things, he was dreaming about or getting ready to dream about. And I kind of wanted to put that out there. And he's a little black boy. And I know that sometimes we don't embrace that imagination, like they don't, they can't have an imagination. Well, yeah, he has an imagination. So he likes to count, he likes to read, and he has his little plush alligator that walks around with him or kind of, sleeps in the bed with him. And it was just basically calming children down to go to bed. So that's how he just kind of came along.
Yes, ma'am, and that's great. Like, it's great that you were able to capture that story. Took a year to write it from cover to cover. Found you an illustrator who was able to bring your vision to life. So once you made the decision to go for it sounds like everything just fell into place. I know you were saying you were nervous about putting it out there to the world, but hey, great thing. That's how you go about. You gotta do what you gotta do. You gotta put it out there because people gonna love it. People gonna criticize it, but either way, the fact that you had the courage, the audacity to write it and put it out there is very commendable. Very commendable. So in terms of Miss T's book room, you've done great things. I know great things are going to continue to come down the pipeline. Let's talk about my next portion, vision. What are your short-term and long-term goals for the book room?
I would really like to be able to get different books into school systems. I know that's kind of crazy right now because of the banned books. A lot of school systems are kind of having this thing where they're just not really getting them, don't want them really to be in that, the classroom and stuff. But my vision is to, if that is the case, then hey, let me just get me a building. Let me get a building. Let me get something and just, or, and like a lot of people I'm working with, supporters, community, working together. I have found out working together, you can't do it by yourself. So I'm like connected to a lot of people who love Miss T's book room idea. They love the whole the vision of Miss T's book room. So they're helping me. They're helping me get it out there. And even for adults, I'm really, like I said, I started a book club. It's in the summer last year. And they send me things like what they think I should read, and we talk about things. And like I said, I post things, and I'm in all these book club on Facebook and stuff like that, book club groups on Facebook. And just really getting people to help building a community. I really, really want to do that, like in partnerships, and I feel like that is going to really get Miss T's book room everywhere. So, but that's my vision. I really want it not just in schools, but in community centers and, the rec center, the places that children come after school, like I really want to do a lot of that. That's one of my really big visions, is to do that.
Yes, ma'am. Those are some great goals, both short term and long term. And I have no doubt you'll make them all come to fruition.
All right. Thanks.
Yes, ma'am. So as we wrap up the podcast, I want to ask $1 million question. I started this podcast to highlight the greatness connected with Montgomery, whether you were born here, lived here for a significant period of your life. You being born here and attending school here, I want to ask you, what do you appreciate the most about the Gump?
Oh, history of the Gump, the culture. Hey, we when you say that you're born in, like I say, it's like a Tuskegee thing, when you say that you're born in Montgomery, or you say that you're going to Montgomery, oh, I know this and that and that and that, the legacy center. I mean, it's the history.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's beautiful. Like I love Montgomery. Like that is a place that, like I said, everybody knows about. Everybody knows what took place there. And that's one of the big reasons why I love Montgomery.
Yes, ma'am. Powerful stuff. So, Kioka, how can the people connect with you? What are your social media handles and website?
Okay, so Facebook, I am Miss T's Book Room. So you can just put in MISST apostrophe S and then Book Room. And then on Instagram, I am MISS underscore TS Book Room. I also have a blog called Tea Lights and Books, and it's on Substack. I don't know if y'all ever heard of that, but all you have to do is put it in Tea Lights and Books and Substack, and I just basically talk about a lot of things like just being raised in the South and being a reader, and talk about a lot of my bookish adventures because I love to take, I call them field trips, historical trips to see monuments and stuff and different things from history. Because I love to travel, and I also talk about, bookstores, especially Black owned bookstores and coffee shops. So y'all check out Tea Lights and Books and Miss T's Book Room on Facebook and Instagram.
Yes, ma'am. And of course, I'll put all the information in the description of the episode. Hey, Kioka, thanks again for the conversation. I really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you. I've enjoyed it.
Yes, ma'am. Likewise. Good people, that concludes another dope episode of the Gumptown Podcast. In the meantime, in between time, y'all know what to do. Be blessed, be safe, but most importantly, have the audacity to be you. Go. Thanks again for tuning in. I appreciate your time and your attention. Until next time.